Welcome to Moneyballers, inside the college front office. We're your hosts, Nick Sisko and Luke Bogus, co-founders of Dropback. With the revenue-sharing era of college sports upon us, championship-caliber teams will be fueled by creative, competitive, collegiate front offices. Here on Moneyballers, we'll be learning from the brightest minds and emerging innovators in the new college front office, with the goal of equipping our listeners with tools and tips to give your teams a competitive edge.
Today's guest is Kelly Comarda. He is the director of roster management for Tulane football. He himself is a fifth-generation Tulane grad and even a former Green Wave baseball pitcher. He co-founded the Fear the Wave NIL collective for Tulane, and years later, he's now on staff, directly collaborating with Coach John Summerall, managing revenue-sharing initiatives, and ultimately positioning Tulane to navigate the crazy landscape of college football, as we all know. His roots run deep with the university, and he has a really innovative approach that has made him instrumental in shaping the program's competitive future. This is an awesome conversation. Really looking forward to it.
Kelly from Tulane, how's it going, man? Thanks for joining the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was really interested in reaching out to you because you've been in this space for a minute. You know it very, very well. Co-founded your collective, Fear the Wave. Now you're on staff as a director of roster management. From your time at the collective versus now the time in the building, what about your day-to-day has changed? Collective world versus post-house era is coming up. I'm sure lots has changed. I would love to kind of hear in a little bit of time so far, what has been the biggest changes your day-to-day?
Well, everything's changed. I was a volunteer at the collective. We did everything basically as a hobby, as a volunteer, just to help the university. So as far as being in the collective and being on staff, it's night and day. I was practicing law full time and just working on the collective at night and on the weekends and when I could sneak it in during the day. So it's really been great to immerse myself in this world and get a firsthand account of, how the work at the collective affects the day-to-day of the team.
Yeah, that's a really cool background too. Like a lot of times I feel the collective has some sort of a law background or business background. But what's been really interesting is this transition to bringing those folks in-house with the team, and specifically your structure. It's like you have head coach and you have an actual GM, Cole Hurd, and your title is not GM. It is director of roster management. So maybe walk through what are the different roles and responsibilities of you three that kind of make up this triangle?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different setup than I think you're seeing at other schools. We kind of molded this to try to make it work for where we are, and to play to our strengths. So obviously Cole has been here the last year and a half. He is more focused on the traditional recruiting right now. So Cole sets the recruiting board. Cole deals with high school recruiting. When we get to the portal time, he jumps in and helps with the portal. But my main focus is where business and football intersect. So negotiating contracts, managing budgets, allocating resources, stacking and watching kids for the portal that could end up there, and trying to do some of that legwork to take that pressure off of our recruiting staff. So that's really where I fit in. Cole is the head of our department. He's the guy that's setting the tone for what we want to do recruiting wise. And we both report to coach. It's almost like we're traveling on a parallel ground, just in different roles. We've kind of split up some of those responsibilities that you're seeing a general manager handle at a bigger school because he's got a bigger staff. While our staff is smaller, we're trying to split that role and make it to where we can both play to our strengths and provide the most value we can.
I was just going to say, when you word it out like that, it's like actually recruiting and being on the ground and building the big boards and talking. I can't imagine slapping on all this stuff that is contract management, negotiating with agents, balancing the budgets. It makes total sense that it's two separate roles. You kind of mentioned that at other schools, they've kind of molded it into one. Do you think that you would recommend a structure like yours? Do you feel like it makes sense to split out somebody that is like the business side? I like that the intersection of business and the team is awesome. Like, the great way to phrase it. Do you feel like it's good to have those be kind of two separation of concerns?
It depends on the size of the staff and how many people you have to work underneath you. So traditionally, you have a general manager who may be more of a high level guy if you're talking about pro sports, and they don't get into the weeds a lot of times of the day-to-day scouting or the day-to-day watching practice film all day. At the college level, you're kind of asked to do more with less. At the G5 level, it's even great. You place an even greater emphasis on the ability to do more with each individual person because you have fewer staff members. So we've got a great staff here. We've got Cole, our general manager. We also have Kyle Scheck-Snyder, who's our director of recruiting, who is heavily involved in setting the strategy and the philosophy of who we're recruiting at a high school level. We've got 2 full-time recruiting specialists in Colton Leggett and Keith Domino. We have a director of on-campus recruiting, Courtney Luquette, and we have some students and graduate assistants who help us day to day. But when you're talking about running this big of an operation, there are other schools that have 10, 15, sometimes 20 people working in their recruiting department. We're trying to do it with 7 or 8. Yeah. So we're trying to do the most with what we have and play to our strengths. And this is just the way that it works for us. Now at a different school, a bigger school, let's say Oklahoma, LSU, Texas Tech, that may look different because they have the ability to hire more people. But we're trying to figure out what works best for us. And so far, this is kind of what we've come up with.
Because I guess it highlights that no matter the scale of the operation and no matter if you have 20 people on headcount or 2 or 7 or whatever it might be, it's like the tasks and the jobs to be done, the objectives have to remain the same. It's just like, how do you be scrappy enough to get the same outcomes of identifying talent and balancing the budget and, playing Moneyball in this new era, like all of it matters, like all the more. And of course, you're comparing it to the Oklahomas and the LSUs, like you mentioned, who then they're comparing it to the, the Falcons and the Titans and their 30+ person operations in the front office. And so, again, completely different scales, all the same goals. But it's interesting when you highlighted that, like your goal is to punch above your weight as a G5, trying to set yourself up to operate the rest of them, the best of them. What did it take to kind of get the entire organization to have that mindset? Was it just very natural among the folks at Tulane to say like that this is what we have to do is hire a director of roster management. This is what we have to do is think about ourselves in this new era and intersection of business and sports. How did it come to be, and how did like kind of the buy-in come to be for a G5 school?
Yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting story. So I was here working with the collective from 2021 through 2024. And actually last spring, I left and went to Houston when Coach Fritz went to Houston. And I helped out in their collective there to break into the business full time. He gave me that opportunity. I'm very thankful for him and everything he's done for me. And it just so happened that around that time, I was talking to Tulane as well about what the future looked like. You always have to try to be one step ahead. And I think that's what we did very well at the collective here, is that we were ready to go when things changed. We were trying to anticipate the next move, and we were ahead of the game most of the time. And it wasn't to the point where they needed to hire somebody last spring. So I left and went to Houston, and then this popped up kind of at the end of last year, at the end of 2024, and I came back. But Tulane has been pretty aggressive in the NIL front. And I think that's how we've been able to have so much success recently, and how we see the future of us continuing this, because I talk about this a lot. It's hard to get to the top, but it's even harder to stay there. So if we want to continue to be at the top of this conference and continue to play for conference championships, we have to push the envelope in all aspects, including NIL, including the so-called revenue share. We've got to do the most we can to place ourselves on top of our peer institutions and our competitors.
You mentioned too, we have to be aggressive in NIL. We have to be aggressive with rev share. I feel like historically the word aggression has meant get more money, get a lot of money. What does aggression mean to Tulane? And obviously, the more the better, but like, what are some other things you are doing to be aggressive? Of course, hiring somebody like you is one of them. Like, what are some other points of aggression that Tulane's taking advantage of?
Obviously, we take full advantage of our educational opportunities here. It's a great school and a great city and a really good conference, and we play big opponents. This year we have 3 Power 4 teams on our schedule. We're going to act as if we are a Power 4 institution. We're going to try to push the envelope there and play as many good teams as we can play. We're going to be competitive in compensation. Are we going to get to the level of Power 4 schools? No. But we're going to do as much as we possibly can to stay ahead of our conference mates and our peer institutions. So it's about selling what we have. It's about pushing the envelope and trying to do the most we can on the compensation side. But I always talk about it like this. There are 2 forms of currency in college athletics. Obviously, there's the money, but snaps and quality snaps against quality opponents is what you really need if you want to play at the next level. And we have that to offer too. And so if you're talking to somebody who has a chance to go play at a Power 4 level, but maybe not be a starter, and they may play 150 or 200 snaps, well, we can give you 600 against really good competition and we can showcase you. Like this year, we have 2 defensive backs in the Senior Bowl. Only one other school in America can say the same thing. So we are a place where you can come and showcase your talents at a high level and help you get to the level where you can actually make real life changing.
Yes. I love that that's framing the idea of like, that's the comp package. Like the comp package isn't just the dollar sign and the numbers that come behind it. Like there's so much more to offer beyond that. And, you may not be punching at the exact same level as some of those top schools that are in the CFP of last year, but you can offer so much more than this pure dollar amount, whether that be snaps, whether that be the educational benefits, whether that be the other culture aspects of your institution. Do you feel like folks at the non-P5 level are leaning into that enough? Do you feel like that is the best? Maybe walk me through, like, when you think about building your comp package, is that how you're pitching it to recruits specifically, is get tape so that then in the NFL, you can take to the next level? Or like maybe what are some of the other additives that you're adding to your comp package beyond just the dollar amount?
Yeah, look, and it's no secret. We had guys come here last year that portaled up to bigger places for a lot of money. And you can either shy away from that or downplay it, or you can lean into it. This is a place where, right or wrong, people are looking at what our guys are doing. And sometimes that's going to lead to somebody taking our quarterback for a record-breaking contract. That's going to happen. And you know what? It's great for them and it's great for us because it shows that what we have to offer is valuable. And we're not going to shy away from that or any other part of this package. This is a great place to be. We want kids to be here. We want kids to feel excited about being here and want to spend all 4 or 5 years of their college experience here. But we're not going to shy away from, if you come here and you find a way to go to the NFL, or if you find a way to make life-changing money somewhere else, we'll get the next guy. And the next guy that's hungry and wants to be here and buys into the team mentality. This has really become a year-to-year thing. And either you can shy away from it, run away from it, and it's going to come back and bite you, or you can lean into it, accept it, and try to find your way through it. And that's what we're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, love that mindset. Shifting gears a little bit to kind of looking to the future. Obviously, you mentioned your great staff all having those different layers of objectives that are very similar to the big boys. Do you feel like any of the objectives, your job changes July 1st and onwards? Or do you feel like you've done the legwork such that you are ready to rock for RevShare? Or what are the things that RevShare is going to change about your job?
I think we did a really good job of molding what we're doing now to work for what's coming. And everything has been done with an eye to the future. I think we're ready to go, whether the House settlement, as we're taping this, the hearing is today. And knowing what I know about the legal system, I don't expect any clear-cut path forward today. I think that, and even if or when the House settlement gets approved, you're going to see the next round of challenges. And you've got to be ready for all of the different variables. And I think we've done a good job of mapping that out. And we're ready to go and ready to pivot on a dime, whether we go forward as planned or whether there's a shift and modification, we're ready to adjust. So I think Coach Summerall and the staff here and the administration's done a really good job of preparing for what is expected and also with what could happen if there are changes.
And that's probably one underrated part too, is that when you have like a lean, nimble team, no matter what changes, you guys are ready, versus if you did have 15, 20, 25 staff where you're trying to move the Titanic versus kind of move the rowboats.
Yeah, that, and you know what? I think everybody on our staff provides a different perspective and set of skills and value. And I think part of my value, having practiced law for 15 plus years, is I can translate a lot of what's going on in the court system to the coaching staff or the other staff members here and tell them, like, you're hearing this, but here are the different steps that have to happen for a settlement to be approved. I think people don't understand the basic part of this House settlement. A settlement is a compromise between two parties before a court. Right now, you're talking about people who, the plaintiffs in the House settlement are people that have already played. They're people that played through a certain date, not the athletes going forward. So I think that's the key distinction, where the court is only going to decide whether or not to end that disagreement between those two parties. They're not tasked with determining what happens in the future. That's a whole different fight. And so I think people are under the misconception that the House settlement is going to solve all our problems going into the future. It just takes care of the problems that happened in the past. from here on, that's a whole different ball game and a potentially a different set of issues that are going to continue to pop up. And I expect litigation into the future, unfortunately, until there's some kind of compromise that can last well into the future.
Yeah, this is the starting line
Yeah.
of many, many laps to go. Obviously, if we had a lot more time, I'd love to talk about CBA. I'd love to talk about all those little pieces. One part, since you do have a legal past that I'd love to pick your brain on, is this world of agents entering. There's a lot to think about there as far as it's great that, athletes have the ability to outsource a lot of those things to folks who theoretically have the background and the chops to be able to negotiate in the NFL. Those folks are certified. We're not quite there yet in the college level. Maybe from your legal-ish perspective, what percentage of agents do you work with? Maybe walk me through kind of the state of agents today and what is that like? And I'm sure that's a huge part of your job is dealing with those folks.
Yeah, it's about 50-50. You can tell pretty much in the first 2 to 3 minutes of talking to somebody what their background is and whether or not they have the student athlete's best interests in mind, or whether they have a sufficient experience and background to actually be in that space. And it cuts both ways. It can be a blessing and it can be a curse. If you have an agent that has your best interest in mind, it makes deals much easier to get done. If you've got somebody who's just a marketing guy who's just hitting kids up on Twitter and trying to sign them up, and they're just looking for the most money possible, that's kind of where careers go to die. That's where you end up in a bad situation where you're not playing or you don't fit the system. And that can really be the end of your career, hiring the wrong guy. You may make a little bit of money on the front end, but that might be the last check you cash playing sports. And I think it's one of the big things that needs to come out of this litigation is some kind of, litmus test or certification for agents to represent players, because it's a real issue for some kids. Some of them are too naive to realize it, that this guy really doesn't have my best interest at heart. He's just going to sign me to a deal and then he's never going to talk to me again. I've seen that happen. I've seen agents where, on the flip side, where they've told players to take much less money to stay in a good situation, and it ends up really benefiting them in the long run, where they get drafted or they go 2 or 3 rounds higher in the draft than they would have if they would have gone to a different situation. So, I love the great ones, and the bad ones just make things a lot harder. So it's a mixed bag, but there are some really good ones out there.
I know we're reaching the end of the episode. I do want to hit on just a lighter note. I mean, in this space, you're on all the time. You're working, I'm sure 9 p.m. You get that text from the agent, close the deal by midnight. That stuff doesn't just happen in movies. It is the day to day. What do you do to try to escape all this? Are you a golfer? Is there anything that you try to do just to shut your phone off?
No, the phone stays on. It's a 24/7 type of thing. And I'm actually dealing with this a little bit from both sides. I have a son who's a junior in high school, about to be a senior, and is going through recruiting right now. So a lot of the time I would normally spend unwinding, I spend talking to him about what his process is like, how are things going, and trying to play parent for him and my other 2 boys. So that's the time I get to be dad. It's fun, but it's also, I get to see both sides of this coin, not necessarily from an NIL perspective or a rev share perspective, just to see what kids are going through during the recruiting process and the highs and lows and the toll it takes on the families. It's really given me a much better perspective of and more empathy for what they're going through and how much pressure they're under. It's pressure on both sides right now. I'm hoping and praying that he makes a decision sooner rather than later so we can put that behind us. But yeah, I spend time with my family. I try to make it back. They're actually still in Houston right now for my son to finish high school. He's going to finish next May. So they're going to stay there at least through his football season. So I spend time going back and forth from Houston and just trying to spend time with them as much as possible.
That's actually such a good point. That not that you didn't have empathy before, but what a way to step in the shoes. I feel like everyone talks about the professionalization of all this stuff, and we jump straight to contracts and incentives and all this crazy hardcore business stuff, agents, but we do forget the fact that these are 16, 17-year-old kids that are making the biggest decision of their life. And that's emotional. And you have more than just the kid thinking about the money side of things. You have parents, you have so many other factors. And so it's easy to lose. And so I'm sure being on the other side makes you remember that.
It does. It's been a nice slice of humble pie for me. I have to try to put myself in their shoes a little bit more. And this has helped me a lot to not only identify some of the issues they're going through, but to try to troubleshoot from my end, here are the 5, 6, 7 things questions we've got to answer, and the ways we can make it easier on our prospective student athletes to want to pick Tulane.
Absolutely. Well, Kelly, I'll let you get back to it. Portal's coming soon, so I'm sure there's a ton of prep to do. But thanks for taking 25 minutes of your time for this. Very educational for me and hopefully the listeners out there. So thank you, man.
Thank you.
Awesome. Talk soon.
Thanks for tuning in to Moneyballers. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Plus, leave us a review. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, just email us at hello@dropback.com.